you nowadays have 20 million students using your application. You have 1.5 million content pieces on your platform, and you're online in 17 countries. So it's an application, a learning application for students. And you and your your co-founders founded it out of high school in 2020. And you even, and that I saw on your LinkedIn, founded a company even before in 2018. So in like 10th grade or something for 2 years, where you also have been the software engineering tech part of it. You also have to elaborate more on this because I couldn't find anything else out of it, what this was. So yeah, can you give us a little bit of the backstory, how you got, because this is what we ask everyone, how you got into computer science, especially like, because you weren't at university, right? So how did you start at 10th grade founding a company?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So initially I got into computer science and into programming when I was like around 7 or 8, when I started building my first websites, back then still in primary school, and was sort of always very interested and fascinated by technology. And over time, my interest in sort of expanded, started building first few programs back then with a Raspberry Pi, which is like, maybe some of you know it. It's a small computer device that you can program, that you can build robots with, which was super fascinating for me back then when I was like 11 or 12 years old. And at the same time, my interest for building a company also started. And back then, together with my co-founder from Knowunity, Gregor, in high school, we built a first company, which was also in the education space, where we were solving one of our problems back then. Basically, the problem was that schools are not really digitalized, and oftentimes, for example, lessons don't take place because the teacher is not there. And then you arrive in school at 8 a.m. in the morning and figure out that you could have slept 1 hour more in the morning. And so therefore, what we built back then was like a digital version of the plan that the teachers send out, or that the teachers put in the school, that allows you to get a notification and don't even leave the house too early. And then right afterwards, sort of while finishing our Abitur, our final exams, back then still in southern Germany, we then had the idea for Knowunity, so that so many of our peers were struggling with school, that school is not really fun for students, that school is not really efficient, that it's not really personalized, and then had to change something about it, and then started Knowunity from there.
And what do you think where your entrepreneurial drive comes from? Is it something in your childhood? Why do you, I mean, starting in 10th grade, do you had some like idols you looked up to? Or what was the reason why you thought it's a good choice to build your own company?
That's actually a good question. There's not one particular reason. I think for me it was more that it has always been fascinating for me to create, to craft something myself. And even when I was like still in primary school, I was always dreaming of one day perhaps building my own companies. That was a thought which was in my mind since very, very early on. And then in my childhood, read a few books about entrepreneurs and how they built their company. That has always been quite exciting for me. So, and then it started from there.
And when you started it, when you started Knowunity, what were your ambitions of building this company? Like, was it right away? Because nowadays they raise like several rounds of venture capital. I don't know if you had the education that you knew what venture capital is back then, but like, how did this ambition also change, and how was it at the beginning? Was it just that you thought it was cool to build it and you wanted to live off it, or was it already that you wanted to like capture Europe and make education better? What's the ambition there?
The ambition when we started was really in the first place to actually help our peers to be better at school, since so many of our peers were struggling. But we still had the ambition to also build something bigger from day one, basically, and always had this vision in mind of building the daily learning companion for students. That was still like on our pre-seed pitch deck. The first sentence on there was building the daily learning companion for students. And we back then didn't know much about venture capital, didn't know much about how to actually build a company. I think many of the things that we actually learned were just by talking to other founders and by trying it out, doing a lot of mistakes, obviously, also along the way, and then making sure that we don't repeat them.
And starting from 2020 till today, roughly 5 years, what if you would sketch out the journey with the milestones you had? What's the story up until now?
So the story basically started in April 2020 when me and my co-founders met up back then. This was like during COVID, as you probably all remember, and started actually building the platform over summer, and then we went live in September 2020, and on the first day we had like a few hundred users, and we're really sad after the day because we thought we didn't build the right thing. What did we do for the last couple of months? But then on the third day after the launch, we had a very successful influencer campaign on TikTok with one video which really went viral with more than 1.5 million views after a couple of hours, and that brought us to 20,000 users in the first after the second day that we just started Knowunity. So at that point we knew that we might be onto something, and for being able to scale, we then actually decided to raise the first funding round back then with business angels from Stuttgart, our hometown, and with that funding round, sort of we're able to start Knowunity properly and continue marketing and getting users on the platform. Since obviously the most important part of building a B2C company is having users on the platform, getting users who try out the platform, and for us to be able to run A/B tests and to see what is actually working out. And over the next couple of weeks and months, it's like until mid of 2021, we were continuing building features. Back then, it was very much focused on peer-to-peer learning content. So students being able to upload content to the platform, and then other students being able to learn with the content. And then we sort of raised our first bigger funding round with Project A in the lead back then, our seed funding round, started expanding into a few different markets. Initially, we're only active in Germany, then expanded into France, into Poland, the UK, Italy, and a few other markets in Europe. And then afterwards, started building a team, getting a few people on board, which is also a topic we might talk about it later, where we made a lot of mistakes, weren't as careful as we should have been at hiring, and didn't always make the right choices early on. And then a bit later, also started expanding further, expanded into the US, expanded into Latin America, and now sort of have a good amount of countries captured with Knowunity, and have more than 20 million users on the platform that are using Knowunity, and are now looking to also expand into higher education, since obviously for most students school doesn't end after high school, but continues, and there's a lot of need also in university for students to have an easier and a more fun and a more efficient and a more personalized way to get education.
How do you manage to like operate this in 17 countries who are also like maybe from the school system, from the culture, different from the stuff that the people learn? Like, do you have teams in every of those countries that like switch stuff depending, or like is it mainly just an adoption and distribution thing, or what is it?
Yeah, that's also an area where we made a lot of learnings over time. Obviously, in the end, every country is different. There are different exams. The culture always differs a bit between the countries. But in the end, if you break it down, school and education is almost the same everywhere. Students go to school, they get homework that they have to do after school, and they have to prepare for their exams. So those are the three main components that are the same everywhere. But then obviously the content is different. The education system is different. So we do adapt the app to every single country that we're in. We do localize it, but the core functionality is the same everywhere. And in addition to that, especially in the last couple of years, AI helped us a lot to make it super easy for us to operate a lot of markets at scale. For example, we invested into completely automating customer support with the help of AI. We invested into automatically translating the whole app into all different languages. So by now we have a few people for the core markets that really make sure that we localize the markets and that we are the most efficient and that we do that we grow in the markets. But apart from that, everything is driven by one central team here based in Berlin.
Okay. What you already mentioned on the HR part, which you already did a like LinkedIn post about like 3 weeks ago or something, where you said that you were not taking hiring seriously enough in the early days, which I can understand. I mean, getting right out of high school, you never worked, I think, in a proper company, and then you have to learn it on the job. So, but like, can you elaborate on this and how what you changed, and also how you see, especially because you're the CTO, I guess you're mainly involved in hiring the more technical roles, like how you see hard skills versus other skills for developers, and how this changed.
Yeah, hiring is and building the right team is something where we made unfortunately a lot of mistakes early on, where we weren't even super clear about what kind of culture do we want to build up, what kind of skills and people do we really need. So we were all super focused on building the right product, on building the best user experience, and sort of didn't focus much on hiring. Just got the first people on board that we sort of found. And in the end, that cost us several months and backfired, since not having the right people on board that are not 100% aligned with the culture in the end caused a lot of issues for us, in terms of us not being able to get where we wanted to get to, the culture not being well aligned. So once we realized that we were not good at hiring, we actually spent a lot of time looking into how do other companies hire. How does Ryan Chesky from Airbnb hire? And sort of started setting up the rule for us that us co-founders, we need to spend 40% of our time on hiring and really getting the best people out there on board, especially in the product space, since in the end, probably the product and the engineering space, since probably the team and the department who will decide in the end whether we will be able to become a unicorn or not is going to be the product and the engineering department, since it's all about the product that we are building. So over time, we learned what does even a good, how does a great team look like? What kind of culture do we want to build at Knowunity? And therefore also adapted our hiring process, made sure that we ask the right questions, that we get people actually to the office for a whole day before they start working at Knowunity, to really see how does the collaboration look like in person. Plus, we are nowadays around 60 to 70 people, which on the one hand is a lot and allows you to really build something proper. But on the other hand, it's also not a corporate with hundreds of people, and therefore keeps the communication overhead quite low, doesn't require much bureaucracy, doesn't require many processes. And given that we want to actually also stay around a similar size, believe that it's possible to become a unicorn with 60 to 70 people, we don't need to get hundreds of great people on board. We just need 60 to 70 amazing people on board who will want to go this journey together with us. And therefore, getting the right people on board is still for us one of the biggest topics that we're concerned about and that we're working on.
You mentioned several times that you like the culture you want to build changed. Like, but how does the culture look like?
How does the culture look like? The culture at Knowunity, we want to build a high performance, or we're building a high performance culture at Knowunity, where it's also normal for everyone, not just to sort of give 100%, but rather for everyone to give 120, 130%, and really also go the extra mile with us. Since we are right now at a critical inflection point where we're really able to build something big in education, especially currently with everything that is happening in AI. This is a huge opportunity for us, and therefore really need to make sure that we have a really amazing team, that everyone does learn on a daily basis, especially with AI. So many things are changing. So many new skills need to be developed by everyone on the team. Engineering has been changing massively over the last couple of months, with new models being released, and therefore also the position of an engineer changing quite rapidly. But also in other departments, things are changing so rapidly that everyone really needs to be embracing this change, and needs to make sure to level up on a daily basis, which then on the other side allows everyone to grow a lot, and to really be on board at a company which is growing, and which might become a unicorn at some point.
And if you say you now want to build, like, or you are building a high performance culture, that kind of implies that it wasn't the case always. Like, and how do you then make the switch, especially for the people who are already on board? I mean, if you hire new people, it's quite okay. Yeah, there are new things you look for, but like, have you just fired the whole team and like hired new people, or how do you make this shift in mindset and what culture you build, like for the people who are already on the team?
I think one of the things that we didn't do right was actually communicating clearly what we want, what our expectations are, and therefore for a long time there was always a lot of ambiguity in the room. What are the expectations? How is this company going to work? And by making sure that we align everyone, and that everyone is on board with the mission that we are building, we managed to turn things around, and create a culture where everyone is sort of giving 120%, and is wanting to go the extra mile together with us.
Okay. And you also did not really a pivot, but a remarkable kind of transition into AI, right? If you now look at Knowunity landing page, it says, I think, like the AI learning companion or something for students. I guess it was not the AI learning companion 2 years ago. It was, I don't know, maybe a little bit different. So, and beyond the obvious, which is like, I guess for you, content generation and an AI chatbot, like what are for you the things where you think, what's the next step with AI for Knowunity beyond those kind of obvious features?
Yeah, for us, the vision was always from day one to build daily learning companion for students. And especially around 2.5 years ago, when LMs came up and were becoming way better, it allowed us to sort of make a pivot to some extent, and get to this vision even faster than we ever imagined before. The reason why AI is so important in the education space is because in the end, every single student is unique. Every student has their own set of competencies, their own learning style, their own preferences. And if you think back to your own time at school, in school you're typically sitting in a classroom with 30 different students and one teacher. And the teacher is not able to individualize and personalize to the class, to the individual student. Where on the flip side, we at Knowunity, we have a lot of students on the platform and a lot of data, therefore, that allows us to figure out what are the competencies of a student, how does the student learn the best, what kind of progress has the student made so far, and therefore able to give the right recommendations and the right content to every single student, and make sure that students actually learn in an individual way, and are able to learn in the most efficient way.
And how is your, I mean, I think you're responsible of the technical part, so also the engineering organization. How has this already changed through AI, and what you expect will change in the next 2 to 3 years?
We actually saw a quite big change in terms of our engineering team, and the productivity of the engineering team with the help of AI. We, for example, started using Cursor quite early on, and saw a massive improvement in terms of experiments that we were able to ship. At Knowunity, we are an A/B testing driven culture, so we run a lot of A/B tests. And in the end, yes, you can't properly measure engineering productivity, but one of the metrics that we're looking at is the amount of experiments that we are running. And right after the first months that we introduced Cursor, engineering productivity already doubled, which was quite a big change and quite a big improvement for us. And since then, we've also invested a lot into making sure that engineers are actually able to properly use AI tools, are able to use or write the best prompts, are able to give the right context into the LLM, since in the end, an LLM can only produce the right content if it has the right context. Plus, also started building several tools internally that help us to get even more context into the LLM. For example, for front-end engineers, we built a Figma plugin that allows us to extract the right context from a Figma file matched with our design system, and is therefore able to produce a large amount of code on the front-end side automatically, and therefore sort of saves our engineers a lot of time, which then is spent differently. Since at Knowunity, we have a lot of product engineers on board. So engineers who are responsible both of thinking about what are we actually building, what do the users need, what kind of metrics do we need to impact, but then are also able to execute this mission, both on the backend side and the mobile side, and therefore able to work even on more areas, have more impact, and be more of generalists. So therefore, going forward, we believe that yes, it's still important to have deep technical knowledge, but it's also extremely important to be quite generalistic and to have knowledge not only on the technical side, but also on the product and on the business side.
Inside your application, we have May 2025. Like, what is the model or models you're using right now, and do you have a process of reviewing if it's still the best, or is it just like, yeah, we are a company that uses Anthropic and we just use the best Anthropic model at every point in time? Like how does it work?
So initially, when we launched our AI companion, there was only one real proper model out there. Back then, OpenAI GPT 3.5 Turbo. But over time, so many new models came out, and nowadays new models are almost being released on a daily basis. And we want to make sure that we serve every single user in the best way. And therefore, we don't just use one LLM, but we build an LLM routing system, which allows us to figure out what LLM are we going to use, what system prompt are we using, what tool calls do we need, how is the UI supposed to change. So whenever a student is asking a question, we first analyze the message. So we take a look at the intent of the user, what is the complexity of the question, what is the topic that the student is asking about, classifying whether the user is asking for specific attachments, and then based on that are able to choose the system prompt mainly based on the intent. So we describe how is, for example, the AI companion supposed to translate, how is the AI companion supposed to help with a math question, how is the AI companion supposed to guide the user, are then choosing what tool calls we're going to use. One of the tool calls, for example, we're using is code execution. As you might know, LLMs are not great at solving math problems, especially when it comes to math problems with large numbers or decimal points. So therefore, we then rather tend to use code execution that allows us to solve the question more accurately, are then deciding what LLM are we going to use, whether it needs to be a larger LLM, which has more reasoning capabilities, or whether it can also be a smaller LLM and therefore has shorter waiting times for the user. Plus, are also deciding how is the UI going to change, what kind of proactive entry points do we want to show to the user, what kind of visuals do we want to show to the user. The AI companion in general is not just a chat, but it's a visual chat. So students get a lot of visual explanations that we extracted from the peer-to-peer content on the platform. We show entry points into different use cases, be it, for example, quizzes, be it mock exams, be it summarizers, be it creative text. And therefore, in the end, are guiding the students and making sure that they learn in the best possible way.
In this routing system, do you know the actual numbers, which are the most used models?
Yeah, so Currently, we're using a mixture of Gemini models and OpenAI models. Those are like the two most prominent models. But we are basically A/B testing a lot. So whenever a new model comes out, we do run an A/B test and see whether it has a positive impact in the end on the usage and on the retention of our users. And one of the big advantages that we do have is that we do have quite a lot of daily active users. And that allows us to reach statistical significance on our A/B tests, typically after a couple of days, and therefore allows us to iterate super quickly and to see for what use case does what LLM perform the best.
And you personally, like, what is your, if you now use a chatbot, which is not the Knowunity one, in your free time or whatever, like, which is your standard go-to one?
For me, actually, what I like to do is not just ask one LLM, but rather open three at the same time. So asking the same question to
Routing everywhere.
in the end, yes, routing everywhere, and asking the same question to Gemini, to OpenAI's models, and to Anthropic. And over time, you then manage to build up some sort of intuition for what kind of use cases do you want to use Anthropic's models? For what kind of use cases is Gemini better? And for what kind of use cases do you perhaps need a reasoning model from OpenAI?
What I recently saw, I have never tried it out. Maybe some of you tried it out, but like I saw a tweet or something of someone who always does it similar, but like asking ChatGPT first and then taking the answer and saying like, oh, this is what, like going to Claude and saying, oh, this is what ChatGPT gave me. I guess you're better, and then like making it a battle. I don't know if anyone tried it yet. Yeah, you tried it. Is it working? Oh, he says yes. You say no. Okay, so. Okay, yeah, maybe depends on the prompt and stuff, but I thought that's interesting. Maybe quick question for the audience, like who of you is not using ChatGPT, like has a different go-to chatbot, like Claude, like le chat, or yeah, okay, Grok, Claude, someone else, someone using le chat as the default? No, the chat. Oh. Okay, maybe next time. Okay. How do you think? I mean, you are really on the application layer of this AI wave, and you have to adapt to every new model and to the capabilities. Like, how does the long-term value creation work there? You earlier said that you see yourself like the most important department as our like product and stuff. So this is you don't think that we have to nail distribution and we just like pull the tech after us. So what's the critical thing here to nail as an application layer, maybe even especially for consumer, as we don't have a lot of consumer founders here. Usually that's a unique insight.
I think for us, it's mainly a mixture between the experience of the users, but still distribution. But for us, distribution doesn't only come from typical performance and marketing. That's obviously also a part. But in the end, as we're building a consumer product for students tend to share the app a lot with their peers. So when students sit in class, they typically recommend it to their peers. So therefore, there's also a big organic growth for us, which in the end is growth coming out of the product, and therefore again makes the product and engineering team quite important. So distribution is definitely one major point for us, and then the other point is the experience, since obviously students have the ability to also ask other chat apps and to use other platforms. But in the end, if they have the best experience with Knowunity, if they get the best answers, if we manage to guide them and to teach them in a very personal way, students will come back to Knowunity, since they notice that they will get better grades if they use Knowunity, and that they learn in a faster way.
There was recently some numbers announced, I think, from Perplexity, where you could see that they're having like a even negative like gross margin because they have like so much cost for compute, and they have a lot of discounts they give to the people. So I think they like make negative gross margin of what, like 30 million or something. How do you navigate this, especially as you also have like a, I guess, target group that doesn't earn that much money with students? Like how do you navigate not losing €1 per day on like your per student or whatever? Like what are the numbers for you? How does it work?
So for us, there are several components. The first one is that we strongly believe that LLMs will get cheaper over time. If you, for example, take a look at the costs of OpenAI's models, 1 year ago, they were almost 10 times more expensive compared to right now. And we believe that this trend is going to continue with all of the advancement happening in the AI infrastructure space. In addition to that, as mentioned before, we have this LLM routing system, which allows us to send the send the question of the student always to the most fitting LLM, and therefore allows us to make a good trade-off between quality, the speed, and in the end also the costs. Plus, in addition to that, we're also building up several revenue streams to make sure that we're able to cover the costs. And yes, obviously, students might not be the target group who have the most money, but typically parents are always quite open to invest into the education of their students compared to investing into some random game that a student wants to play. So therefore, we don't see this as a big challenge for us.
What are other, you said multiple revenue streams. What are other revenue streams than subscriptions for you?
We have a second revenue stream, which is for us as a B2B revenue stream, where we solve two problems at the same time. On the one hand, when a student is finishing school, many students don't really know what they should do afterwards. Should they do their studies? Should they take an apprenticeship? And then on the other hand, there are a lot of universities who are looking for students. There are a lot of companies who are offering apprenticeship places. And by bringing those two parties together and sort of showing the user the abilities, the possibilities, what they can do after school, we managed to build up quite solid second revenue stream.
So it's an HR business. Is this like can you say like how much percentage of your revenue is what?
It's an employer branding business on the B2B side. The majority of our revenue comes from B2C, and this is also going to stay the focus for us. But B2B is sort of a very nice sort of side effect.
So you're just like, we have the leads. There's just an opportunity to monetize them.
Exactly.
And, okay.
Yeah, and also in the end, again, it's not just that we're putting random Timo ads into the app. We really want to make sure that we give the students or show the students the best possibilities of what they can do after school, and therefore, yeah, manage to build up a nice second revenue stream like this.
And maybe going a little bit into learning. How do you think this will change for the next generation of like maybe students, but maybe even humans? Like if you have an AI companion always with you, like how does this potentially change the way humans have to learn things at all, or like should learn different skills? Like will the skill sets just change, or like will it not? And also from the school system side, like how should they adapt to it?
In the end, AI is obviously having a quite big impact on education, and is changing a lot of things. We still believe that our core mission is that we need to have a positive impact in the end on the students, and therefore want to make sure that students actually learn properly with Knowunity, don't just use it for cheating or getting the answer quickly, but really making sure that we apply a very Socratic answer style to the AI companion. So instead of just giving students the answers right away, rather trying to get the student to figure out the answer together with the AI companion, and therefore also creating a sense of curiosity in the minds of students, which I think many of you probably experienced talking to Chat GPT or any other large language model, that it's not anymore just about getting the answer, but oftentimes about getting even deeper into the topic, and therefore creating a sense of curiosity in the minds of the students. And we believe that in the end, AI and with Knowunity, we're not going to only have an impact on education systems like the German education system or education systems of more developed countries, but in the next step, we also want to expand to countries with less developed education systems. And we believe in those countries, we have an even bigger opportunity to help students and therefore to have a positive impact on their education.
I have one last question. So after that, we'll have a Q&A. So you can already think about questions you want to ask to Lucas. After this question, someone will go around and pick the people. My last question for today is, in your opinion, what is the one most overrated and one most underrated thing in AI? Could be a tool, could be an architecture decision, could be a person, I don't know. Yeah, well, overrated and underrated.
What is the most overrated? The most overrated topic for me is currently, since it's also a problem for us, is many people overrate the abilities of LLMs and think that an LLM is going to solve everything. But I personally believe that LLMs have reached a limit to some extent. The different foundational model providers, they've used all of the data which is out there. So therefore, I think there needs to be a bigger shift in the architecture of LLMs in the next step. Which, for example, if you're just taking a look at the ability of an LLM to visualize the math graph, which is a quite relevant topic for us, LLMs are really bad at so many different topics, and therefore are still very far away from reaching human intelligence. So that would be the most overrated topic for me. And the most underrated topic, I think one super interesting development, which many companies have skipped, is fine-tuning large language models. Since yes, you can go quite far with prompt engineering and just upgrading to a large language model, but especially when it comes to very specific use cases like classifications, using smaller language models and fine-tuning them on a very specific task can really solve a lot of issues, since it allows you to get both the latency down and the costs down. So this is sort of a development that we are currently quite excited about internally.
Thank you. Now, you can raise your hands if you have any questions, and Leo will give you a microphone.
Hi, I'm Sven. Thank you very much for this introduction. And I really love the way how you're creatively and flexible approaching all those challenges. So my question is concerning your expansion to higher education, which seems so natural, but which is also like when I think of school, I think of 10 to 15 different subjects. When I think of university, there's like 50 around, each of them having like 20 different classes or more. So it looks like a lot of variety. So my question, how do you want to approach that? And do you think you will be able to manage that higher level that's inherent to higher education for that learning platform?
Yeah, as you already correctly said, high school education is a quite limited space, whereas higher education is a quite broad space, and therefore it's quite relevant for us in the end to have the right content on the platform, since we one of the reasons why our AI companion is so good is because we have a lot of peer-to-peer content on the platform, and are using that both for retrieval augmented generation, which allows us to ground the answer of the LLM based on the content, and therefore avoid hallucinations, but also to adapt the complexity, plus showing the visual contents to the student. And for us, one of the main exercises when it comes to higher education is making sure that we get enough content on the platform, and therefore cover all of the major courses and classes out there in the higher education space. So that is one part. Plus B, also LLMs get stronger over time, and therefore will be able to also solve higher education problems more easily in the future. But yes, that's indeed one of the challenges, one of the most interesting problems that we are currently working on internally.
Thanks for the interesting talk. I was wondering if you mentioned students who use the app fare better in assignments, etc. How do the same students fare in exams when they don't have obviously access to the app and other tools?
We do run surveys on a quite regular basis, and our surveys typically show that students who have used Knowunity for 2 weeks managed to improve their grade by, in the German education system by 0.5, which is a quite big improvement already, and we expect this to also continue to further improve after they've used Knowunity for a longer period of time. So for us, it's not about just giving them a short-term reward, but really also making sure that it has a long-term or long-lasting impact on their exams and their lifelong learning.
Thank you for the talk. I was just wondering, what do you think, does the future of schools look like? Will they just be there for teaching, or will you just take it over at some point and they are just like the network for your peers? Or what do you think the future, what kind of vision?
I think in the end, school has two purposes. The first purpose is obviously the education, but the second purpose is also the social part of school. And we still believe that also in 10 years or 20 years, students will go to school, and it's important for the development of a child to go to school. I think the way how students learn will fundamentally change, but putting students together in a classroom, I think, is something which shouldn't change, and will probably still be the same in 10 or 20 years.
Thank you for first of all for your experience that you shared with us. I have a question about how you manage for 20 millions of users the often experience with the data that LM share with user. Maybe you have some idea about the memories exactly for the user and LM that give more experience, because it's like the real human memory inside, yeah, exactly for this user, working exactly this in these cases, not repeatable for the answers. And what are you thinking for this technology in the future in your product?
So for us, personalization is obviously quite a big topic, and the way how we approach personalization is that we first need to figure out what is the individual student learning, and therefore had to basically create a representation of the whole school system, which we internally treat as a knowledge graph. It's like a graph-based representation of the school system, and whenever a student uses Knowunity and performs any interaction, we basically attach the interaction of the student to the knowledge graph, and therefore are able to see what topics they are studying, how the topics that they are studying do relate to each other, and also how they're making progress over time, and are then using this data in the future to adapt the complexity of the answers, to show the right suggestions and recommendations to the user, but also for adapting the learning style based on the content that the student has seen in the past. Plus are able not only to use the data of the individual student, but are also able to figure out what does a cohort of users, for example, in a specific grade, in a specific students who are typically studying with topic A, those students are also typically struggling with topic B. So we are also able to extrapolate the information to some extent.
Experience these students, and maybe some methods not so good exactly for that. That means LM propose another exactly for this customer. Do you think about this technology, or only for the technology that's operated the graph and adaptations besides the experience exactly this customer, because this different experience with communication with LLM when they use exactly your memories, exactly your cases that works for you. What's something not work.
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure whether I got your question. Let's maybe catch up afterwards, after the talk, and dive into it.
When you actually talk to the students, what do they say they enjoy most about using the product?
We do actually talk to users on a quite regular basis. Also, all of our engineers talk to users on a regular basis. And when we talk to students, in the end, it's mainly the visual experience that they like about Knowunity. It all sort of started with those very visually appealing content pieces that A-level students uploaded, and then other students are able to consume, very beautifully drawn. And this is sort of the way, even still right now, with the AI companion, we integrate those attachments, those visual content pieces into the answers. And therefore, students are able to learn much more efficiently compared to just asking their question to ChatGPT, where they just get a text-based answer. So that's definitely one of the most the things that students enjoy most about using Knowunity.
So I have a question like mostly LLM applications, they are fancy state machines. So are you using any agent orchestration tool as well, or you are just like build your own framework by tools? I mean, like, are you using LangGraph or QAI, or you have just your own flow and you are managing all the agents yourself?
In the end, we are managing the LLM calls ourselves. And this is also an area where we invested a lot into the foundations. We want it to be as easy as possible for everyone on the team to use LLMs, both locally, but also in production, and therefore build our own AI gateway, which is basically a unified interface that allows everyone to make calls to an LLM and makes it also super easy to switch LLMs by just changing one parameter, and has a lot of also reliability mechanisms implemented. By now, we are handling more than 350 million LLM requests per month, which is quite a lot. And LLMs are not as reliable as you would like them to be. So we had to invest quite a bit into circuit breakers, retry logic, fallback logic, and so on. And this all is handled by our AI gateway. And there's no additional component in front of it at this point of time.
Hello, I'm Alex. So I have a question. You mentioned about the personalization, which is really amazing, that instead of one teacher to 40 students, but like one student to one teacher, which is really great, the AI companion. But the thing is, when we put AI, sometimes we also, it's like a black box, like we don't know, like this AI is a toddler or actually a professor. And when also there's a chances that maybe the answer is actually not really relevant with the students. Do you also incorporate some feedback from the students, and then you update the confidence level of the answers, and then you fine tuning the model itself, not just giving prompts, but you maintain the models, and then, or actually involving like real teachers to also fine tuning the models, or how do you do to put more human value to the answers, basically?
Yeah. So for us, improving the answers of the LLMs is obviously one of the most important topics that we're working on. And therefore, we are collecting a lot of feedback from the users, both explicit feedback and implicit feedback. Explicit feedback in terms of students giving a thumbs up or thumbs down, and implicit feedback in terms of a student not coming back, leaving the screen right away, or also adding another message with a negative sentiment. And we're then analyzing those messages that were not perceived well by the user, and are then looking into ways how to improve that specific type of flow, which usually for us is consists of building a new intent in our intent classification model, and then adapting either the system prompt of the LLM that we're using, or looking into fine-tuning an LLM to explicitly cover that one use case.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Prain. Thank you, Lucas, for the talk, and thank you to our moderator. Since Knowunity is in quite a few countries and geos, I wonder if there are interesting stats that you can share in terms of trends on learning that you see through students' learning behavior, whether it's how prolific they read, speed to finishing quizzes, et cetera, and what does that say about how you see different education systems and disparities around the world?
Yeah, very interesting question. We actually managed to make a lot of learnings about the differences between the different countries. For example, in the US, students typically are way more focused on multiple choice questions and on sort of practicing using quizzes, using flashcards, whereas in Europe, students, for example, are way more focused on sort of the visual components and on just exam preparation, writing long texts, writing essays. Whereas then, for example, in Latin America, our AI usage is even higher, since in Latin America, we are oftentimes sort of the first touch point of a student with AI, and therefore tend to create a wow moment for the students, which then boosts the AI usage of the students.